Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue from the lecture that we were having in the last session. And if you recall, we had been discussing cultures and subcultures in a country, and that country was Pakistan. I had mentioned to you that the reason why we need to study these cultures is very significant from the marketing point of view. And in this part of the lecture, we will be showing some ads which has relevance in these areas. And just before I proceed with the rest of the lecture, let me tell you how the rest of the few sessions that we are left with will proceed. Now, we have done a lot of work in terms of giving concepts and developing ideas and trying to integrate through practical examples of the current marketing and market situations. What we will try and do is that when we do the recapitulation of the rest of the studies that we have done, we will try and integrate various areas of our knowledge with certain communication, media ads, or some information that will be actually targeted into those areas that we had been discussing. The reason basically would be to bring this whole thing together, where on one side we have developed some conceptual frameworks. We have tried to integrate these things in theory, but then we would like to bring practice into the class so that we can see and look at how certain things match with the concepts. The idea would just to be able to give you how or what marketers do to target a particular area. Now, just to explain what I mean by this is, I will be showing you an ad now just to establish that various situations, various things are done in one culture may be taken as totally different in another country and another culture and another framework. And the same thing which relates to the overall different cultures internationally is also very true in the context of Pakistan as we are. And for that, if you recall, at the end of the last session, we had shown you a video which actually tries to explain and describe or demonstrate the various subcultures that exist in Pakistan. Keeping that in mind, the things that we showed you, and now what I'm going to show as an ad to be able to demonstrate exactly what's going on. And with one or two more, I think you will become more clearer as to why marketers tend to do these things, because this is a very delicate kind of an affair where we need to be very cognizant, which means we have to be very sensitive to the cultural behavior and norms and value systems before we start even advertising or even communication. And that is where the whole crux of understanding consumer behavior comes into position. Marketing is just not producing a product and putting it into the market and creating an ad or creating a communication framework or a positioning model and just launching it. We have to be very careful that when we do these things, they fit with the culture and the value system for which it is targeted. And as an example, if you look at the screen, we will be showing you, and this ad is a very simple ad. This ad suggests that there is a hand symbol that people tend to use, and I will show you the hand symbol. This is basically when we do this. This in Egypt or the Arab world will mean, please be patient. But if you went to Italy and you used the same thing, it would mean, it would be actually a question. And the question would be, what do you mean? And if you went to Greece and you use the same symbol, this symbol would suggest that it is wonderful, that something you have done is excellent. Now, try and link up the whole logic. It's the same symbol, and the symbol is this hand movement. In one country, it is going to be taken differently. In another country, it will be taken totally differently. In another country, it will be taken totally differently. But when an advertisement will use it, it has to be done in a conceptual frame. Now, basically, what we are trying to do exactly in the same context, and we are trying to suggest that please remember that the local knowledge, local knowledge of every culture is critical from the point of view of the marketing, and the marketers have to understand that before they even start producing an ad, which means various cultures where it's not acceptable to use females as models should be avoided, and people should be innovative, creative in doing the same thing or communicating the same message by avoiding these issues that can come up. And that is where sensitivity is very critical in our learning. Now, what we are trying to look at is, we had talked about the culture as a broader picture, and then we were trying to give you subcultures within the system. And we had given you this clips. And now what I want to do is show you another ad, which is actually based in another country, but with what it is for the same product, by the way, and which I've just mentioned to you, that one has to take very strong cognizance of the fact that you can do the same thing, you can communicate the same message to two different cultures without compromising on their value systems or their ethnicity or their beliefs or whatever you have to think about before you go into it. And this ad is about a coffee. Now, this is a coffee ad, and you can see that there are two subcultures which are being targeted. And you can see that there is a modernistic culture and there is a very orthodox, very westernized, but very orthodox kind of area which is being used. But there are two distinct ads that are being presented. Now, this becomes a very critical issue when you are looking at it. And you can see that two different ads are being sent to the communication to the, the targets, where each target is related to the sensitivity of the culture. And that is what is the beauty of how you can create advertisement or communication systems which will target only those people for whose culture it is aimed at, and it will not compromise on any other issue. So this is one of the most important things that I wanted to bring to you today. Now what we do is, I told you at the last time that I'll be talking about subcultures which are based on age. Now, the issue is, why is age, which is part of the demographics, is being used for the purposes of trying to understand subcultures? Like, remember when I said we started talking about subcultures, we were talking about that all the cultures have similar kind of value systems. They are more or less have similar kinds of behavior, purchase behaviors, and so on and so forth. And they think, and their attitudes are more attuned to each other, and the cultures stay cohesive in those frameworks. यहाँ भी एज में भी अगर आप गौर करें तो you will see कि जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, उनके जो behaviors हैं या उनके जो value systems हैं या जो उनके attitudes हैं, वो youngsters, teens से बहुत मुख्तलिफ हैं. और उसकी वजह से it is becoming quite normal in the marketing कि वो age को भी subcultures के तौर पे treat करते हैं. And if you recall, going back to the segmentation area where we were discussing segments, तो हम वहाँ जब कर रहे थे तो we were talking about segmenting the market on the basis of the various age groups. यहाँ जब हम इसको देखते हैं तो we are trying to figure out कि उन age groups के अंदर behavioral differences क्या होंगे. Or we are not just going to look at the behavioral differences, but we will try to look at big clusters which will behave in the same way. जहाँ दो चीजें are very important. That is, even though this study comes from the Western world, but the discussion that has been going on for a long time, which suggests that cultures may converge, therefore suggests the same knowledge that जो age group बाहर उनके behaviors हैं या उनके attitudes हैं, वो तकरीबन आपको replicate होते हुए मिलेंगे even in the context of Pakistan. And we will see how. Because when people were born in a particular time frame, तो जो दुनिया की environmental conditions थी, वो तकरीबन सब पर असरअंदाज होती हैं. और जो भी group, if it is existing in that kind of environmental framework, तो उसके जो basic क्या नाम है value systems या basic attitudes हैं, वो उन्हीं तरीकों से formulate होते हैं. Now, having said this, you must also see this in relation to द फैमिली लाइफ साइकिल कॉन्सेप्ट, जहां हमने ये कहा था कि जैसे फैमिली लाइफ साइकिल में छोटा बच्चा होता है, देन ही ग्रोज अप, टीनेज आता है, कॉलेज जाता है, एंड सो फोर्थ टिल द डिक्लाइन ऑफ द एज स्टार्ट्स, तो हर सेक्टर में उनके तरीक़ाकार, उनके बिहेवियर्स, उनकी बाइंग और कंजम्पशन जो हैं वो चेंज करेंगी, उनकी नीड्स भी चेंज करेंगी। इसी को अगर हम दोनों को मिलाएं तो व्हाट वी गेट इज दैट वी डू हैव अ सिग्निफिकेंट रीजन टू determine that age are also subcultures. They can be formulated into subcultures. So at this point of time, we will be looking at basically 4 large clusters. Clusters का मतलब है कि जहां एक ग्रुप, हम उसको जो कि होमोजेनस ग्रुप है, जिनमें बहुत सी सिमिलैरिटीज हैं, हम उनको सेपरेट कर रहे हैं। तो जो भी ग्रुप हमारे सामने है, उनके जो नेचर और जो भी उसके जो एसोसिएटेड फ्रेम्स हैं, उनको हम देखते हैं तो वो तकरीबन एक ही तरह के पाए जाते हैं। तो दैट इज व्हाट वी कॉल अ होमोजेनस ग्रुप, और इसको इंग्लिश में हम कोहॉर्ट भी बोलते हैं। टिपिकली कोहॉर्ट का मतलब है जो कोई भी एक करेक्टरिस्टिक उनके अंदर हो, उसको इस्तेमाल करते हुए हम कईयों को अराउंड द सेम करेक्टरिस्टिक जब उसको हम ग्रुप कर देते हैं तो वो कोहॉर्ट बन जाता है। मिसाल के तौर पे अ क्लास ऑफ मैट्रिक इन इस्लामिया कॉलेज may be called a cohort for that purpose. इसी तरह से जो लोग पैदा हुए 1947 से लेकर या 1945 से लेकर 65 तक, तो ये जितने भी लोग इस पीरियड में पैदा हुए वो भी एक कोहॉर्ट बन जाएगा। और उनके अंदर जो मैंने जैसे कहा कि उसकी वजूहात क्या है, वो यही है कि इनके ज़मानों में, अपने टाइम्स में जो भी चेंजेस आ रही थी दुनिया में, उनका असर होता है। तो फिर दोबारा दोहराते हुए कि when we talked about cultures, we said that there is an overall culture like culture in Pakistan, then we have subcultures within it. इसी context को अगर हम आगे ले जाएं तो फिर दुनिया में जो चीज़ें रोनमा हो रही थीं, तो जिन चीज़ों का असर किसी एक पीरियड पे था, तो उसका असर काफ़ी सिमिलर है, इवन दो जब उसको कंटेक्चुअलाइज करते हैं, यानी कि हम पाकिस्तान में आते हैं तो फिर पाकिस्तान के अपने असरअंदाज चीज़ें होती हैं तो फर्क पैदा करती हैं, बट ओवरऑल जो पिक्चर बनती है वो तकरीबन एक ही बन रही है। तो हम उन बड़ी पिक्चर्स को देखने की कोशिश करते हैं, एंड देन वी नीड टू ब्रिंग दैट लार्जर पिक्चर एंड देन सी हाउ दोज ग्रुप्स आर बिहेविंग इन पाकिस्तान। सो द ग्रुप्स आर ब्रॉडली जनरेशन वाई, जनरेशन एक्स, बेबी बूमर्स एंड सीनियर्स। Now generation Y is the latest group that we have, which were born between 1977 and 1994. That is the group. So जो लोग इस पीरियड में पैदा हुए, हम उनको एक कोहॉर्ट बोलते हैं और उनको हम जनरेशन वाई बोलते हैं। ये चाहे पाकिस्तान में पैदा हुए हों, चाहे अमेरिका में हो, यूरोप में हो, चाइना में हो, ये जनरेशन वाई का ग्रुप है, बिकॉज एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम में इनके ऊपर जो दुनिया के असरात थे, जो उनकी कंडीशंस थी, वो सब असर अंदाज हो रही थी, बट हर मुल्क के अपने करेक्टरिस्टिक्स भी उसमें पाए जाएंगे। बट वी नीड टू बी एबल टू लुक एट द ब्रॉड ग्रुपिंग्स बिफोर वी कैन टॉक अबाउट द इंट्रिकेसीज ऑफ ईच ग्रुप, एंड देन वी विल ऑल्सो सी कि हम इन ग्रुप्स को कैसे मार्केटिंग में हैंडल किया जाता है और उनके मुतल्लिक कुछ एड्स हैं। तो जैसे मैंने कहा, वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट जनरेशन वाई, जनरेशन एक्स, बेबी बूमर्स एंड what you call seniors. Now, like I was saying, Generation Y born between 1977 to 1994, these groups can be also further subdivided into three distinct areas. कुछ हैं जिनको हम कहते हैं Generation Y adults, which are people who are between 19 and 28 years. So 19 साल और 28 साल के बीच में जो ग्रुप है, वो भी Generation Y के, बट वो adult कैटेगरी में आ रहा है। उसके बाद जनरेशन वाई के टीन्स हैं, जो तकरीबन 13 से 18 साल की उम्र में जो टीन एज ग्रुप है, वो भी इसमें शामिल है। और इसमें एक स्ट्रेंजली एक और ग्रुप हमने शामिल किया है, विच वी नॉर्मली कॉल द जनरेशन वाई ट्विन्स, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट ओल्डर, दे आर नॉट इन द टीन एज ग्रुप, बट दे आर बिलो द टीन एज ग्रुप, जो कि नॉर्मली आप 8 साल से लेकर 13 साल तक के पीरियड की बात करते हैं। हालांकि वो इस पीरियड में पैदा नहीं हुए, लेकिन अभी तक उनकी कोई डिस्टिंक्टिव ऐसा करेक्टरिस्टिक्स नहीं पाया गया कि जिससे हम उसको अलग करें, तो उनको भी जनरेशन वाई ही में रखा जाता है। तो जनरेशन वाई में फिर तकरीबन मतलब ये हुआ कि 8 साल से लेके 28 साल का जो ग्रुप है, एज ग्रुप, उसको जनरेशन वाई में लाएंगे। और उसकी वजूहात भी चंद बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट हैं। मिसाल के तौर पे द एज ग्रुप बिटवीन 8 to 13 is very computer savvy, which means कि ज़्यादातर these people are much more advanced in the knowledge of computers than 8 to 13 years जो कभी भी था। मिसाल के तौर पे जनरेशन अगर हम एक्स को ले लें या बेबी बूमर्स ले लें जहां कंप्यूटर इतना नहीं था, तो उस एज ग्रुप से ज़्यादा ये जो 8 से 13 साल की उम्र के लोग हैं, दे आर वेरी मच ऑन टू द कंप्यूटर्स। और ज़्यादातर इंटरनेट ब्राउजिंग जो है वो ये भी बहुत करते हैं। परचेज नहीं करते हैं बट देयर नॉलेज हैज़ एक्सपैंडेड सो मच। तो ये एक करेक्टरिस्टिक ऐसा है जो जनरेशन वाई में कॉमन है, क्योंकि जनरेशन वाई में तकरीबन हर एक के पास कंप्यूटर और उसका इस्तेमाल का फ्रेम आया हुआ है। तो वी नॉर्मली टेंड टू टॉक अबाउट द जनरेशन Y as a separate category, and I will show you an ad which is targeted towards generation Y tween. That means जो teenage से छोटे ग्रुप के लोग हैं। और उसकी वजह क्या है आप देखेंगे। This is the period in the life or the current situation where health is becoming very significant. और ये health का जो issue है ये ना सिर्फ उन लोगों के लिए जिनकी उम्रें ज़्यादा हैं, because obviously they want to look young, they want to keep fit, they want to do all this. But ये जो habit है, this has also been passed down to the children also, and they are becoming health conscious. So जो ad मैं दिखा रहा हूँ वो तकरीबन इसी चीज़ को target करता है। If you look at this ad, this is basically about a child who is interested in having healthy lifestyle and जिसमें low fat product है। अब low fat product अगर आप गौर करें तो ये बड़ों के लिए है जिनके लिए प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं डायबिटीज़ की या फैट्स ज़्यादा होने की। लेकिन चूंकि मैं कह रहा हूँ कि ये जो ग्रुप है 8 से 13 साल, ये जो छोटों का ग्रुप है जो कि फिट नहीं करता जनरल जनरेशन वाई की कैटेगरी में, लेकिन फिर भी चूंकि उनके कुछ करेक्टरिस्टिक्स ले लिए गए हैं तो ये लोग भी उसी तरह से बिहेव करने की कोशिश करते हैं या इनके अंदर भी वो वैल्यूज पैदा हो रही हैं जो इनके एल्डर्स के अंदर थी। तो दे आर देयर फॉर बीइंग टारगेटेड एज जनरेशन वाई। सो आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग कि जनरेशन वाई, even though it is from 1977 to 1994, but it is also including people जो तकरीबन 8 से 13 साल जो इस पीरियड में पैदा नहीं हुए, लेकिन जैसे मैंने कहा चूंकि उनका अभी कोई ग्रुप खासियत लेकर नहीं आया, कोई करेक्टरिस्टिक लेकर नहीं आया जिसको उसको डिस्टिंग्विश करेगा, तो वी ट्राई एंड कीप देम हियर ऑल्सो। और इनको भी उसी तरह से अट्रैक्ट किया जा रहा है जैसे सीनियर लोगों को किया जाता है फॉर द पर्पसेस ऑफ हेल्थ एंड कॉन्शियसनेस, बिकॉज ये एक ऐसा वैल्यू सिस्टम है जो पूरे कल्चर्स में या ग्लोबली जिसके अंदर जिसका जो वो है व्हाट यू कॉल दी डिफ्यूजन जो है वो तकरीबन हर कल्चर में हर एज ग्रुप में फैली हुई है और इसका इम्पैक्ट उन यंगस्टर्स पे भी आ रहा है जिनको हम 8 से 13 साल की उम्र का बोलते हैं। नाउ कीपिंग दिस पॉइंट इन माइंड, वी विल ऑल्सो शो यू एन एड which is typically targeted at the generation Y, and this is that 28 का जो एज ग्रुप है ये उससे ताल्लुक रखता है। और अगर आप देखें तो ये एक एड है फॉर अ स्मॉल गेम जिसको स्क्रैबल्स बोलते हैं, जिसमें इंग्लिश सीखी जाती है, एंड यू कैन सी कि जो करेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं इस ग्रुप के वो इसमें दिखाए जा रहे हैं और इसमें जो दोनों मॉडल्स हैं वो रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं उस ग्रुप को जो तकरीबन 20 से 28 साल की उम्र का ग्रुप बनता है। And this is how they normally apply this logic of using the generation framework. Generation को target करते हुए we can apply these things, and this is typically the ad for a game. Now there is another group which does not fall within the Y group or the X group, but ये दोनों के बीच में पड़ता है, यानी कि इसका जो age group है वो strangely enough is between the two, और ये 21 से लेकर 29 साल के लोग 30 साल की उम्र तक के लोग हैं। इनको ट्विस्टर्स कहते हैं, which means कि they are between the two groups but they do not have any। और इस ग्रुप का particularly foreign countries में एक बड़ी स्पेशल करेक्टरिस्टिक है जो अगर हम अपनी तरफ देखें तो हमसे बहुत मिलती जुलती है कि ये ग्रुप वो है जिनको एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिल जाती है, they become employed, but they do not leave their family homes. That means they keep staying with their parents. Normally they do not get married because they delay their marriages. They have got the money because they are in jobs. और ये ज़्यादातर चीज़ें खरीदते हैं, गैजेट्स वगैरह. यानी कि ये वो ग्रुप है जो रिसोर्स बिल्ड नहीं कर रहा. They are not trying to build assets. And if you remember our discussion on the value system where we had talked about कि एक चीज़ कहलाती है वेल्थ में रिसोर्सेज. रिसोर्सेज वो हैं जो आगे चल के आपको इनकम बढ़ाने में मदद देते हैं. सो कई ग्रुप्स हैं, जब हम देखेंगे जनरेशन वाई, जनरेशन एक्स, बेबी बूमर्स, कि उनका बिहेवियर पैटर्न क्या है, क्योंकि वो लोग ऐसे हैं जो नॉर्मली एसेट्स को डेवलप करते हैं और रिसोर्सेज बिल्ड करते हैं फॉर फ्यूचर. ये ग्रुप जो है ये रिसोर्सेज की तरफ इतना टारगेटेड नहीं है, but they are more into clothes and more into cars and more into buying electronic goods, things for consumption and things for their own personal living, even though they are living at their family homes. So this is another group that comes into position, which is called twisters. Now we look at Generation X. ये जो generation है ये Y से पहले आती है और 1965 and 1979 का ये period है जिसके अंदर ये ग्रुप आया. और इस ग्रुप की प्रॉब्लम सिर्फ इतनी है कि these kids or these children or this cohort was born to baby boomers. Now यहाँ I will have to go a little bit into a little bit of a history to clear के why these impacts जो हम बोलते हैं generalizations के अंदर वहाँ क्या हो रहा था जिसकी वजह से एक खास किस्म की एटीट्यूड पैदा हो गई. बेबी बूमर्स का टाइम वो था कि जब सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म हुई एंड जितने भी आर्म्स बन रहे थे या हथियार बन रहे थे उनकी फैक्ट्रीज को चेंज किया गया एंड दे स्टार्टेड प्रोड्यूसिंग कंज्यूमर गुड्स. जर्मनी तबाह हो चुका था, जापानीज तबाह हो चुके थे. सो देयर वाज अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग मूवमेंट टू डेवलप दोज इकोनॉमीज. और जितनी भी जंग हुई जिसकी वजह से नुकसानात हुए तो उसको रैपिडली कवर करने के लिए ऑल इंडस्ट्रियल सिस्टम स्टार्टेड प्रोड्यूसिंग कंज्यूमर गुड्स. तो वो जो ग्रुप उस पीरियड में आया उनके पास पैसा आना शुरू हो गया एंड दे हैड अ लाइफ व्हिच हैड गॉन थ्रू अ पीरियड ऑफ वॉर के एंड से निकलने से दे वर more affluent, they had a lot of money, so they were having a good time and so forth. But when we come into the 60s and the early 70s, the first petrol जो crash हुआ या price बढ़ी जिसकी वजह से economy में बहुत फर्क आया तो एकदम system tried to contract. और जब system contract किया तो उसकी वजह से जो लोगों का lifestyle था उसमें थोड़े से change आई. और चेंज आने की वजह से थोड़ा सा हाथ जो जिसको कहते हैं हाथ रुके. देयर वाज लेसर अमाउंट ऑफ स्पेंडिंग बिकॉज इमीडिएटली द प्राइस ऑफ अ बैरल ऑफ ऑयल शिफ्टेड फ्रॉम $5 टू परहैप्स इफ आई रिमेंबर $17 to $16. एकदम ऑयल जंप किया जिसकी वजह से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्टली हो गई एंड प्रोडक्शन कॉस्टली हो गई. सो पीपल हैड डिफिकल्टी इन बाइंग. ए काइंड ऑफ रिसेशन टुक प्लेस. तो जो लोग इस रिसेशन में आए उनके जो मेंटल एटीट्यूड्स थे वो डिफरेंट हो गए फ्रॉम देयर पेरेंट्स. पेरेंट्स ने बूम टाइम देखा था. बूम टाइम इज व्हेन एवरीथिंग वाज ग्रोइंग, मार्केट्स वर ग्रोइंग, प्रोडक्ट्स वर बिकमिंग डेवलपिंग, देयर वर मोर इनोवेशन टेकिंग प्लेस. और फिर सडनली रिसेशन आया तो इन लोगों के लिए जो चीज़ें थी उनकी ज़रा रिस्ट्रिक्शन हो गई जिसकी वजह से देयर एटीट्यूड वाज अ लिटिल डिफरेंट. So इसमें यह कहा जाता है कि these people are more cynical, skeptics, which means they would like to question everything. They do not believe immediately what is said to them. They do not even like to be singled out as a targeted group. They do not like labeled clothes. They prefer brands, but they do not like labeled clothes. So there are people who want to be considered separate from their parents and their the family elders. So they have an attitude which tries to break away from the traditional behaviors and try and create their own group. So जब उन्होंने अपने आप को ग्रुप को डिफरेंट करने की कोशिश में they are more freedom oriented, they are more flexible, they have money, but they do not also put so much into a relationship between company and the employer or the employee. वो जो रिलेशनशिप है बिकॉज हुआ क्या था कि जब रिसेशन आया तो कंपनीज ने जो पुराने उनके काम करने वाले थे who actually were the parents of this group of Generation X, उनको निकालना शुरू कर दिया. अब इन लोगों ने जब ये देखा कि तो लॉयल्टी का जो फैक्टर था वो 70s और 80s के ग्रुप में that was missing. I mean, those people जिन्होंने कई साल कंपनियों में अपनी जिंदगियां गुजारी थी, जब रिसेशन आया तो कंपनियों ने जब उनको निकालना शुरू किया, तो these people realized that there is nothing called long-term loyalty. And because loyalty का gap आया, they became more oriented towards the work condition. And पैसा इनको भी चाहिए था, but they started giving more importance to the kind of environment a company gives. The previous जो group था, the group that we talking about, which is the baby boomers, जो कि हम अगली दफा बात करेंगे, जो इनके parents बनते हैं, those people, the baby boomers, they were more into jobs. They were working hard because they had a lot of opportunities and there was things going on. But हमारे जो ये जो ग्रुप है जनरेशन एक्स का, इन्होंने जो चीजें देखी अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ होते हुए, तो दैट क्रिएटेड अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ स्केप्टिसिज्म. स्केप्टिसिज्म इज एक्चुअली कि आप हर चीज को क्वेश्चन करते हैं, यू डू नॉट एग्री विद समबडी टेल्स यू कि जी लॉयल्टी बहुत जरूरी है और बहुत अच्छी है, तो दे डू नॉट एक्सेप्ट दैट. दे थिंक दैट देयर इज समथिंग रॉन्ग बिकॉज उन्होंने अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ ये होते हुए देखा कि दे वर वर्किंग इन कंपनीज फॉर ईयर्स, और जब रिसेशन आया तो कंपनी ने उन लोगों को निकाल के बाहर करना शुरू कर दिया, जिससे इनकी लाइफस्टाइल के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट आया. सो दे टेंड टू चेंज कंपनीज एंड दे आर लेस लॉयल इन टर्म्स ऑफ कंटिन्यूइंग टू वर्क फॉर द सेम कंपनी ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. इसको मैं अगर एक्सप्लेन करूं कि अगर मैंने किसी कंपनी को ज्वाइन किया तो कंपनी ने मेरे साथ अच्छा किया, मैंने कंपनी को काम कराया, लेकिन मैं लगातार कंपनी के साथ रहने की कोशिश नहीं करूंगा. अगर मुझे मौका मिलेगा, आई विल शिफ्ट. एंड दैट इज वेयर जनरेशन एक्स बिकेम डिफरेंट फ्रॉम बेबी बूमर जनरेशन. और उसकी वजूहात जैसे मैंने कहा ये हिस्ट्री में है, तकरीबन हर जगह के ऊपर ब्रॉड जो कंसिडरेशंस हैं, लेट्स से लाइक स्केप्टिसिज्म, ये इज बिकमिंग वेरी क्रिटिकल बिकॉज जनरेशन एक्स को जब आप एडवर्टाइज करेंगे तो यू विल बी वेरी केयरफुल बिकॉज दे do not like what we call hype. यानी कि किसी चीज के मुतालिक आप शोर शराबा मचाएं कि ये बहुत अच्छी है, तो ये इनको इस किस्म के एड्स पसंद नहीं आते. They want to be very factual. They want to be very simple in terms of what is being communicated to them. तो जब हम ये चीजें देखते हैं तो we need to be very careful in trying to understand how these the age cultures or subcultures are important when you are targeting a group. And that is what we said when we talked about segmentation. That is what I was saying, that these people differ from their parents who are the baby boomers in the form that normally people say that baby boomers like to work as these people like to live. So they want to delay marriages. और उसकी भी वजह जैसे मैंने कहा, जब recession आया था तो they saw the problems that occurred in their families, so they try and delay marriages to make sure that they have been able to secure their system. अब हम देखते हैं कि how can we appeal to Generation X? And appeal is how would we communicate to them and what would be the thought process that we need to keep in mind. And we will give you some examples. And if you look at the list that I am generating, which is a very simple list, you will see what their issues are. Now, these people tend to feel that they are more sophisticated than their parents were. उसकी भी बड़ी वजूहात हैं, because when the parents were actually earning a lot of money, they were buying products and so on and so forth, these people watched and they could discern the good and the bad and the quality of products. So when they grew up, they believe that they have a better sense of quality and sophistication. So they look at that frame rather than the parents who used to just look at acquiring things. So baby boomers के पास पैसा था, they wanted to acquire things. These people think that they are more sophisticated. Now, like I said, they are not necessarily materialistic as their parents were, but they do tend to have something like they are more attuned to, or they more look for brands and household products, but they do not like labels on their clothes. So they avoid labeling on the clothes, but they prefer brands. So that is another important point, that they would like to be influenced by brands, but they will not be loyal to the brands, which is a distinction that we need to take care of it. Now, another example is that baby boomers are considered to be more interested in reading newspapers. Us zamane mein, when baby boomers were there, which is between 40s and 60s के जो group है, तो वहाँ television का इतना इस्तेमाल था ही नहीं. I mean, television had not really become too commercialized. Therefore, those people were more attuned to reading newspapers. But this group, on the other hand, has television and has been watching television and has grew up during the period of time television was taking hold. So they are more influenced by the television system of getting news rather than reading newspapers. Again, a simple logic जो आपको भी समझ आ जानी चाहिए इस वक्त कि if you wanted to approach this group, it would be better to come through the media use of television rather than a newspaper. And if you wanted to approach a baby boomer group, then it would be more sensible to try and go for the newspapers to reach this group. This is where we say it is becoming important. And like I said, keeping the same thing in mind, अगर आप generation Y को reach करना चाहेंगे, तो the internet most probably is the most suitable thing. So we have very distinctive groups using this age subcultural frame to determine कि वो कैसे इनके behaviors क्या हैं. So baby boomers most probably newspapers, generation X most probably the television, and generation Y you go on the internet. In the same form, which we need to understand कि जनरेशन X जो हैं सबसे ज़्यादा ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग का इस्तेमाल करते हैं because of the age group also and because of the difference in their living lifestyles from the people who were before, which is baby boomers. जो जनरेशन Y है वो अभी इतना young है कि they are not that attuned to use the online buying system. Online buying system is paying through credit cards, transacting money through ATMs and so on and so forth. Lekin this becomes the largest group. And jo baby boomers hain, they still tend to be more into check signing, money transfer through drafts and so on and so forth. So ek aur important factor jo hai, wo aana shuru ho gaya. Keeping the same thing in mind, because these people are more tuned towards television, like I said, to jo hotel चलाने वाले लोग हैं and people who actually try and attract this group in their hotels have started giving these two kinds of information. That means they have started bringing in LCDs, flat televisions in each room, hotel room में दिया जाता है, और internet access भी दी जा रही है for the purposes of providing them facility of online transacting when they are traveling and whatever they are doing. Another interesting feature that is regarding the Generation X, that they are not very happy with the way the shopping malls are laid out. अगर आप कभी किसी shopping mall में गए हो, पाकिस्तान में भी, in Lahore or maybe in Karachi, in Islamabad, what you will find is that these places where people come to buy in a collection as a family, तो वो normally what they do is they tend to go to the food court, जहाँ fast food आपको मिल जाएगा of every kind and every type. The food courts tend to provide service, let's say within 10 to 15 minutes by giving the orders, and people who go into these normally tend to enjoy this kind of a style with their families. But Generation X का जो interest है, वो एक बड़ा typical interest है, और वो avoid करते हैं. They would rather go and dine, sitting dinner, which means that they would like to go to a restaurant where they can sit on a table, properly order the food, have the food on the table, and then go. So इनका एक criticism जो है और इनका जो एक finding जो आ रही है वो ये है कि अगर malls इनको target करना पसंद करे, तो then they must have restaurants where you can sit and have food. जबकि जो generation Y है, they are more into the food court system, and obviously baby boomers always tend to support their children, so they are also inclined to do the same thing. However, Generation X is typically different. Whenever they go out, even for shopping and shopping malls, they would like to have sit-down dinner on lunch. So there is this, again, difference. And like I've been saying, by looking at these age groups also, and looking at these cultural frames of similar values and similar attitudes and similar behaviors, we can use that for the purposes of marketing and developing our promotional campaigns. Now, once we have discussed the Generation X, we like to talk about the baby boomers. At this point of time, the largest group in the world, and they were born between, like I said, 1946 to 64. And this is the period where people who are between 45 to about 65 years old are grouped together. So they come into this framework at this point of time. At this time in the world, this is most probably the wealthiest of all the other groups, because these people have been working. At this point of time, when they are reaching 40s, 45 and 50 groups, they are at the senior managerial level positions. They are more or less very important for any marketer to target because they also have a lot of money. They are normally people who are moving towards the old age, but एक बड़ा important characteristics जो इस group का वो ये है कि even though they are moving towards the group age of 60, they still do not want to believe that they are old. So उनका जितना भी lifestyle है, it's shifting towards health consciousness. They are normally taking up a lot of memberships in health clubs. They use cosmetics substantially to keep looking younger. They are also a large market for cosmetic surgery. For example, using of Botox for keeping the skin clear, wrinkle-free. They are the group which is normally involved in these kind of things. And obviously, they also have the money to pay for it. And अगर आप गौर से देखेंगे, ये जो पिछले कुछ अरसे में even in Pakistan जो health clubs और जो cosmetic surgery के clinics खुलने शुरू हो गए हैं, और ये suddenly इनका एक काफी ज्यादा इसका impact आ रहा है market में, and you will see regular advertisement in lot of magazines particularly. तो ये सारे इस group को target करते हैं. Naturally जो 35 है, they are not so concerned at this point of time about their looks. But the group which has gone beyond 40-45 are the people who have started feeling the impact of age coming through. So they want to, but they have a very strong desire to keep looking young and keep looking fit and fresh as their younger counterparts. But तो ये एक इसकी एक खास characteristics है. और फिर there is a lot of money that is involved in this segment, because जैसे मैंने कहा, they have been working through a very high growth period and they have had a lot of opportunities. Normally they all are based in managerial position with at least graduate degrees, so and so forth. So they tend to be the people who have been involved in a lot of acquisition. So जैसे मैंने कहा, in contrast with Generation X, इनका attitude था चीजें खरीदने का, चीजें रखने का. उसकी वजह भी आप गौर से देखेंगे कि जिस वक्त when they were born, तो उस period में the older generation जो इनके parents थे वो जंग से गुजरे थे, Second World War से. और उस जमाने में तो तभी दुनिया में जो तबाही आई हुई थी, 39 से शुरू हुई वो जंग और उसके असरात जो थे. तो when these children were born, उस वक्त transition हो रही थी from a very bad period of life to a very booming kind of a period of life. And those people who had finished the war, had moved to civilian jobs, had actually started rebuilding their homes. So in बच्चों ने, they had seen acquisitions taking place. घर में रेडियो आ रहे हैं, घर में मुख्तलिफ क्या नाम है चीजें आ रही हैं, products coming in, household products are being brought in. So they got this habit of acquiring these things. So they are more into materialistic acquisition. और यही नहीं, हम ये भी कहेंगे कि इनके characteristics के अंदर conspicuous consumption, ये मैंने एक word आपको बताया था conspicuous consumption का, कि जहां हम consume करते हैं दुनिया को दिखाने के लिए. तो ये उस जमाने के start में ये चीजें हुई कि लोगों ने चीजें जब खरीदनी शुरू की तो उसका एक खास मकसद not only to be able to give them a good lifestyle, but was also to be able to show other people that they have been able to rise rapidly and acquire these things. So they are more into conspicuous consumption. और फिर एक जो इसकी एक important consideration है, क्योंकि ये इसका जो एक subset है, subset मतलब है कि it's a group, a smaller group, which is, let's say, just about 40-ish, and they are moving towards the 50 age and beyond where they want to relax. तो उसमें इनका एक attitude ये है कि they are trend setters, which otherwise means that these people are being used now to be targeted for the purposes of influencing the younger lot towards those products that are being promoted. ये वो products हैं जो normally target तो किए जाते हैं youngsters को, but और ये जो senior age group है वो शायद इसको इतना पसंद ना करता हो, लेकिन वो एक इतना बड़ा age group है या substantial group है जिसको अब marketers target कर रहे हैं for the purposes of even including them into this. और इसके लिए I will show you an ad which is regarding an older person who is more or less retired. Most probably he's at the age of about 60, 62. He wants to go and relax, like I said, has done his life work. Now he wants to go fishing and wants to enjoy himself. So he takes some food with him, which is basically McDonald's ka. And the idea is to promote the product to this age group. और उसका मकसद सिर्फ एक खास यही है कि they have a distinctive lifestyle and they would like to be seen with a life which is quite totally different. So let me show you these two ads. One is basically an ad which is a media ad, a magazine or a newspaper ad, and the other is a clip. So, and you can see how these people are being targeted for the purposes of a particular lifestyle, and I will show you these ads. So if you look at these ads, you will see that these ads are related to the baby boomers, which are people who are retiring and they are being now induced to live free life. Like I was telling you, that even Disney has started targeting this group, and they are asking Disney World, they are asking these people to come without their families because they have specially prepared adventures for these people who are now at the end of their productive or their economic life, and they are now moving in towards the retirement state. But retirement does not mean that they cannot enjoy their life. So these ads are specifically targeted to that age group. And if you look at the ad on the left, it is for a couple who are sitting most probably in some safari park or some place where they can be together without their children involved in it. And on the right side, if you look at the ad, this is a bungee jumping ad where they are being encouraged to undertake certain adventurous style of life. And if you look at the hair of the person, you will see that it is more or less gray, and that shows the age of the person who is doing this. So again, because this is a different segment coming through, they are more or less going to retire, they will have a lot of money. So these are now being attracted for the purposes of promoting products or areas which were normally promoted for youngsters, because that was the frame, which was basically adventures. And Disney World, for example, has a lot of adventure theme parks where children are attracted, and they are now shifting their behaviors to try and target this particular group. And that is why we have an interesting area. Now we are looking at a few points which are very relevant to the baby boomers that I've just explained, and I've shown you this ad. Okay, these people are consumption oriented. I already told you that they are more conspicuous consumption oriented than the other groups that we have. और ये भी याद रखने की ज़रूरत है कि as they grow from 40 to retiring and going towards 60, 65, their needs and products and services are rapidly changing. उसकी वजूहात दो भी हैं. एक ये कि ये ग्रुप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा दुनिया में, पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त नहीं, लेकिन in the foreign world, in the Western world, sorry, they are moving very rapidly towards services जो पहले available नहीं थी, और उसकी वजह से there is a tremendous shift taking place in the marketing and consumer approach and services requirement, particularly banks. And एक पहले भी example दिया था जहां I was telling you that there are banks which assumed that speed of providing services was a very important criteria to create satisfaction among the consumers. But जब उन्होंने दोबारा research की, because they got a lot of negative feedback coming in, तो उनको ये पता चला कि जो लोग 60s के ग्रुपिंग में आ रहे थे, they were not concerned about the speed. They were more interested in having a little chat with the tellers जो सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, having certain experience के मुतल्लिक बातें, कुछ चंद different kind of a frame. Then the very young generation Y group, which was rapidly coming into the bank and moving quickly back to their offices for a simple reason that they did not want to lose out in their companies. और ये एक बड़ी interesting चीज़ है which I am telling you, which I have just read recently regarding this group, कि ये जो generation Y का group है, they are more concerned about the time they spend in their offices. और जो हम कहते हैं 9 से 5 का job, according to recent research, कि ये जो youngsters, there are age group around 28 to 35 का जो group है, they are spending from 8:30 or 8:28 in the Western world, particularly in the American condition, 8:28 से लेकर they stay in the offices to 5:30. So actually what has happened is that they have increased 1 hour more of work. और उसके वजूहात हैं, वो वजूहात सिर्फ ये हैं कि they do not want to look to their what you call seniors कि they are tardy, which means कि वो time waste करते हैं. They want to be, they are motivated, they are more enthusiastic, they are aggressive in developing their careers, so they tend to work more. And जो पहले जो लोग थे, their approach was a totally different kind, और particularly जैसे मैंने कहा generation X का जो approach है, वो इस group से भी मुख्तलिफ है. तो we need to be very careful when we are looking at it कि जब services develop करते हैं तो जो उसमें segments बनेंगे, we need to be very cognizant of the fact कि वहाँ जो ग्रुप है उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है. इसी तरह से जो मार्केटर्स हैं उन्होंने अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को अब शिफ्ट करना शुरू कर दिया है टू टारगेट दिस काइंड ऑफ अ ग्रुप. फॉर एग्जांपल सेंट जोसेफ का एक एस्प्रिन मिलती है जो बच्चों को दी जाती थी. अब we also know that aspirin has certain characteristics of reducing heart attacks because it keeps the blood thin. तो चूंकि ये रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ थिकनिंग ऑफ द ब्लड, यानी कि जो खून जो थिक होना शुरू होता है वो इसी एज ग्रुप के साथ ज्यादा लिंक्ड है, तो उन्होंने भी अपने इस प्रोडक्ट को, ये जो एस्प्रिन बच्चों के लिए थी, वो इस ग्रुप की तरफ मार्केट करना शुरू कर दिया है. सो वी कैन सी हाउ मार्केटिंग इज शिफ्टिंग देयर फोकस from different other age areas or life cycle areas towards targeting particularly the baby boomers. And जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा कि इसमें जो आपका एज ग्रुप है खास तौर पे एडवेंचर का और जो इसका, वो उनको those things are being offered to the baby boomers. Now, after having come to the baby boomers, I would like to talk basically about the old age group. ये जो ओल्ड पीपल हैं, अब ये बेबी बूमर्स मैंने कहा ये 60s और 65 के ग्रुप में है. अब जो ग्रुप है वो ओल्ड एज के हवाले से है. दीज आर द पीपल हु आर नाउ रिटायर्ड बट दे हैव अ वेरी लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ ग्रुपिंग. यानी कि इनका जो ग्रुप है वो तकरीबन 30 साल के ग्रुप में फिट होता है. दे स्टार्ट फ्रॉम लेट्स से 60 एंड दे कंटिन्यू टू 90. Whereas in all the other groups, अगर आप गौर से देखें तो उसमें 13 साल 14 साल का जो ग्रुप है उसके बाद आप दूसरे में शिफ्ट कर जाते हैं. लेकिन ये जो ओल्ड एज ग्रुप है ये कंटिन्यू करता है फॉर 30 इयर्स, और इसलिए इसके अंदर भी हमने जो मार्केटर्स हैं उन्होंने तोड़ने की कोशिश की है 9 साल के ग्रुपिंग के अंदर. तो वो जो पहला ग्रुप है 60s के बाद, उसको वो कहते हैं यंग ओल्ड, और जो बीच का ग्रुप है वो ओल्ड एंड देन दी ओल्ड. Now, this also is a very significant group because this requires totally different services and products than the groups that have gone before. इनका ज़्यादा इशू जो है वो है मेडिकेशन का, और ज़्यादातर हॉस्पिटल्स और अब जितनी भी बाहर पॉपुलेशन है, आपको पता ही होगा कि वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में जो इस वक्त सबसे ज़्यादा ग्रोइंग सेगमेंट है मार्केट के अंदर, वो इसी एज ग्रुप का है कि जहां हम कहते हैं कि जो क्या नाम है, जो पॉपुलेशन है वो एज कर रही है रैपिडली. जापान, वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड, जर्मनी, यूके, ऑल दीज कंट्रीज इंक्लूडिंग अमेरिका, वहां ये तेजी के साथ एजिंग का प्रोसेस शुरू हुआ है. और इसमें भी क्योंकि उसका साइज बहुत बड़ा है इस एज ग्रुप का, तो उसके अंदर भी बड़े what you call opportunities are sitting for marketers to be able to understand what their requirements are and how these requirements can be filled. Since we are coming into the end of this lecture, as far as the time is concerned, I have a video to show you which is basically targeted for the purposes of the age-old group, but I will not do it now. I will take it in the next session. और उस session में I will also link up with subgroups of based on the sex, which means what they are saying is that age जहाँ group बनाता है वहाँ मेल एंड फीमेल का भी एक बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट ग्रुपिंग है कल्चर के हिसाब से, और उनके जो एटीट्यूड्स हैं और उनके जो बिहेवियर्स हैं वो भी इंटायरली डिफरेंट हैं. और चूंकि रोल्स चेंज कर रहे हैं दुनिया में, more women are coming into job positions and more men are trying to support the families in terms of cooking, in terms of looking after the house. So उसका जो ग्रुपिंग है और उसके जो कल्चरल बिहेवियर्स हैं वो भी कन्वर्ज कर रहे हैं इंटरनेशनली, और उसके बेसिस के ऊपर that also is a very interesting study. So we will look after both of these issues in the next class. Let me close the discussion now, and we have looked at the age and the frameworks down there before, and we talked about the age subgroups, and what we have come to the conclusion is that there are significant age groups which are internationally significant based on collective behavior of the international world and the impact that was coming in from the international environment. और उनको मद्देनजर रखते हुए we need to study these groups within the context of the country itself. Now, when we look at it, obviously there will be changes, but broad frameworks जो हैं, जो मैंने history के तौर पे थोड़ा सा explain करने की कोशिश की कि क्यों ये होता है, तो we need to keep that in mind, and then we should be able to see how we can use these in the way of marketing or communicating. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz. See you next time.